let's have another fascinating conversation by big events that are taking place. Laith Marouf is an award-winning multimedia producer and broadcasting law consultant and a damn good friend of the show. How you doing, Laith? You doing all right, man?
Good. How about you, Jamal? I hope you found a permanent residence already.
I have not. I'm sitting in
Oh,
a hotel. I'm going to be here for 17 days.
oh wow.
I'll find somewhere. I'll find somewhere. I asked you on, and I really appreciate you coming on. There is an uprising taking place in Syria. Um, I have, at least I had, my Twitter account is a little weird right now, so I can't show the videos. But there are all sorts of videos that are coming out on social media of, I believe it was Latakia being one of the places, but basically the coastal regions of Syria, where the residents, in some sense, set up ambushes, have been in firefights with soldiers. There's been other video of Turkish troops seemingly rushing to the coastal regions in order to back up the terrorists, the HTS group. What is going on? First, did I communicate that correct? And two, what is going on in Syria right now?
Yeah. So since the HTS Wahhabi death squads took control of Damascus, 2.5 months ago, there's been nonstop, massacres and sectarian attacks on the Christians, on the Alawites, on the Shia, on the Druze, and as well as on the traditional Sunni preachers in the country. The majority of the Sunnis in the country, Syria, belong to the Sufi mystic sects. They don't belong
Mhm.
to the Orthodox or Wahhabi sect. Therefore, everybody's been under this constant attack by these terrorists. And finally, after multiple massacres in villages in the coast targeting Alawi villages, there's been now an armed uprising, and there was attacks on HTS convoys and HTS controlled offices. And over the last 18, 20 hours, most of the Syrian military bases in the coast, whether it's the Navy, Air Force, or Army, have all been liberated by the locals from the
Wow.
HTS. And even the highest point in the mountains range of coastal Syria that has an artillery base has been now liberated by the locals. And as we see, the HTS is trying to regain control of the coast, and they were unable to. So they needed the direct support of the Turkish military and air force, and that's still not enough, it seems like. And this is simultaneously happening as there's another armed revolt in both Sueda and Daraa provinces that are on the border with Jordan in the south. And there was attacks on the Israeli military occupation positions inside Syria over the night in the Qunaytra
Wow.
area that the Israelis expanded into.
Wow. Are they getting assistance from any group? I remember when Russia pulled out, well, I don't know if Russia's pulled out fully, but the thought was maybe they would leave weapons under a box in a barn, in a cabin, basically leave some means for the locals themselves to be able to defend themselves. You pointed out when I was speaking to you this morning that everybody in the region has weapons. But this seems to be coordinated and it seems to be pretty intense in regards to their pushback against HTS. Are they getting help from any other factions in the region?
Yeah, well, I think what the weapons that are being used are much of them is light and medium weapons, and
Hmm.
those are very available everywhere in the country, including being sold out by HTS terrorists on the black market. You can
I see.
literally cross the border from Lebanon right now into any Syrian village on the border, and they're displaying weapons right in the market in front of you to buy, including ATGMs. And if you want, you can buy a tank even. Okay. So nobody needs to really supply the Syrian people to to fight the HTS. They can find the country is now drowning with either the weapons that were left by the Syrian military, taken over by HTS and now being sold on the black market, or things that are flooding in from all the other war zones, as happened in Libya, for instance, when that
Hmm.
occupation started. So, and actually, there was the only demonstrations we saw yesterday up until now were demonstrations by the Syrians living in the coast outside Russian military bases and the Navy and Air Force base, demanding that the Russians intervene to protect them from HTS terrorists. And the Russians are doing nothing. The Russians are doing nothing. Okay, so I don't think people should think that Russia is going to come to the aid here. Russia made a deal with the United States and with Turkey and with Israel. It helped in the destruction of the Syrian military in return for Ukraine being given to them. And so I don't think, and also, Iran is too far away.
Right.
Hezbollah is busy in Lebanon and can't do much. And in fact, the only fear that HTS right have now, true real fear, not propaganda out in the media about Iran and Hezbollah or Iraq or Russia supporting the rebels. The only fear that HTS has militarily is from Iraq, and we saw big convoys of HTS right now heading towards the Iraqi border, because if the popular mobilization units in Iraq or rebels cross from Iraq, that would have been a like a on all sides attack on HTS in the south, in the east, in the west, and that they
Mhm.
wouldn't have lasted a minute.
You and I so disagree on the Russia thing. And look, I agree that Russia's not going to intervene. That I agree with. I guess I was thinking in the sense of in more of a clandestine way, because HTS was a blow to them also. And from standpoint of Ukraine, Russia already won in Ukraine. I don't know why the Biden administration would have traded that. Um, but that's secondary. Look, you could be right. I could be wrong. I don't know. Um, oh, I've been watching some of the videos where HTS is effectively committing atrocities. They're murdering Alawites, murdering Christians. It looks like purely in reprisals. In one case, they effectively destroyed a house with women and kids in that house. It wasn't a military target. How far has this gone, and where is it currently? Are they still clashes taking place?
Yeah, there's still clashes taking place, but those massacres are happening, and they've been happening for 2.5 months now,
Right.
nonstop. And I know much of it is not making it into Western media and or the social media platforms, because the images are horrendous. But on average, for the last 2.5 months, there's been lynchings and slaughter and massacres of Shia, Alawis, Christian, and Druze in all the major cities except Damascus. Damascus has been the quietest on that front.
Mhm.
But on average, there's around 200 people being killed, just kidnapped and
Jesus.
killed and thrown in the streets, and or their homes invaded. There is women being kidnapped all the time, and that's like in the coast and in the heartland of Syria between Aleppo and Homs,
Mhm.
especially in those small villages that are isolated from the big cities. We're seeing that. But yesterday we saw, as a response to the defeat of HTS in Latakia and Tartus, the two major cities on the coast, we saw the HTS take reprisal against Alawi and Shia residents in Homs city. And so they were going into the neighborhoods and just shooting up on buildings for no reason. And so, look, as long as the HTS is in power, and I know we disagree on Russia, by the way, I understand that. But look, the Russian bases are still safe,
Yeah.
right? HTS didn't push them out, and that wouldn't have happened without a deal. Okay. And I'm not saying Russia, I'm not trying to blame Russia for what happened in Syria. I'm just trying to make everybody understand the difference between, Russia has national interests,
Oh, they
and
do.
it prioritizes them, and Its priority is not to have a world war, a nuclear holocaust with the United States. And therefore, because the Syrian state wasn't strong enough to defend itself under these, without the help of Russia, and because the collapse of the power of the axis of resistance, whether it's the destruction of Hezbollah or leadership, killing of leadership, and so on, that prompted Russia to cut its losses, basically, right?
Yeah.
So it's not to blame for what happened in Syria, but
Yeah.
it has to be understood in those ways. Now, coming back to the issue of Syria right now, I want everybody to understand that what happens in Damascus, this is the power of geography. Okay, what happens in Damascus sets the history of the region. Okay, whatever happens in Jordan will not change the course of history of the region. Geography tells us that. Whatever happens in Lebanon will not change the course of history. Even in Palestine, it's not going to change the course of history. But what happens in Syria, geographically, talking about what's going to happen in Damascus and the heartlands of Syria, this is going to set the whole next 100 years. And therefore, remember, it's not an easy thing to capture Damascus for the imperialists and Syria. This is a land that has, for 6,000 years, fought off colonial rule from the Persians, from the Romans, from the Greeks, from the and everything in between them. Nobody ever was able to hold Syria as a foreign occupier for long, and the Syrian land is fertile for revolution against colonial and occupation historically, and from there, as we see right now, the Suwaida area, or the Arab mount of the Arabs, where the Druze population is, and the coast of Syria is where now the revolution is starting. It's the same places that the revolution started against the French. It's the same place the revolution started against the Ottomans. It's the same place that the revolution started all the way against the Romans. Okay, so it's geography sets history, and those who don't understand, neither read history or understand geography, will never learn its lessons.
You did say early on that HTS wouldn't be able to hold Syria, and that it would basically, it's going to be a powder keg, that it's waiting for its moment to effectively erupt. How involved is Turkey in trying to quell this uprising?
They're directly involved right now. Without the air cover of the Turkish Air Force and the Turkish drones, they're screwed, because it's one thing to have HTS all gathered in one place like Idlib and dug in caves for 15 years, okay, with defensive positions. It's another when they're spread out across every city and every town, and they're trying to move between one road to another on a pickup truck. Okay, even with these machine guns on top of the pickup trucks. So they're easy targets, right? And this is why we saw over actually the last 2 weeks, this is something nobody talks about also, that a wave of at least 25,000 Central Asian fighters and their families from Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan and Turkmenistan are being flown in by the Turks into Syria, because their HTS, with all its numbers, does not have enough to hold a country, right? And this is why we're seeing right now police officers on the streets of Syria that are Chechen or Uyghur, okay? Because they went and fired everybody, even including traffic officers and so on, and now they can't even have police officers or firefighters, and they're importing them. So the country right now is a powder keg, as you said. it's also clearly the vast majority of Syrians, including the majority of Sunnis, cannot accept rule by foreigners. Okay, Jolani is not a Syrian citizen. Jolani is a Saudi, maybe Israeli Mossad guy like Cohen, the guy that pretended to be Syrian in the 1950s, 60s, and almost became the Minister of Defense of Syria.
Wow.
This is what Jolani is. Okay, it's like Baghdadi, also a Mossad, agent. This is not. Syrians will not accept that. Not just the minorities. And one thing that is great is we saw that over the last 2-3 weeks, attempts by the Zionists and the Western, imperialists to push the populations in the south that are Druze and or the coastal Alawi population to create their own sectarian enclaves, to balkanize around sectarian lines, calling for a Druze state, an Alawi state. And what's great is the people of those lands refuse this. They're carrying the Syrian national flag, not the flag of the colonial occupation by the French. This is what Jolani is flying right now.
Yeah.
They're refusing to create a sectarian. The minorities that could right now, the Israelis offered the Druze in the south of Syria protection from the Wahhabi death squads, who are all friends of each other, obviously, the Zionists and the Wahhabi death squads, but pretending that they're going to offer Druze protection and create their own state in the south of Syria. And the Druze refused it. Said, no, we are the Syrians. So this plot to create, even if they can't hold Syria to get all at one as Zionist imperialists, they're going to break it up into enclaves and scare the minorities into wanting to hide under one of the imperial powers, turncoats.
Yeah.
It's not working because Syrians have this root of history and memory of 6,000 years of being anti-colonialists.
6,000 years. Wow. Such a young country. Thinking of the US. How do you think this is ultimately going to turn out? I mean, like you said, the clashes are still taking place. HTS is spread very thin. I mean, they weren't a massive bunch, even when they were able to knock the government over. How do you think this ultimately resolves? I mean, is Turkey going to have to get more involved? Are they going to have to put in more military in order to quell and then hand it back over to HTS? Is HTS going to be able to hold, especially since this seems to be isolated, at the very least in the beginning, to the coastal regions?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, there was the attacks on the Israeli positions in the occupied south.
Right.
And one thing I forgot to mention is that there's been now clashes on the borders of Lebanon, in the north of Lebanon, which is basically close to the highway from Homs into the coast of Syria. So just like a month ago, there was those HTS attacks on Lebanese villages in the north. Now there's an opposite, it seems. So I think the country right now, at any moment, HTS could lose control of the whole country. Okay, and especially if they're leaving the major cities that are the spine of Syria, from Aleppo to Damascus, the heartland, this spine, to head to the coast, and or to head to Sueda to try to quell the rebellion in Sueda. So that means that there's more opening even in the major cities for an uprising. Okay, and so it's clear that Turkey and Israel are going to have to intervene directly to protect their proxies. Okay, and that's great, actually. I, as an Arab, I don't like to fight the proxies. I want to fight one master directly.
Yeah.
Move over, Jolani. Let's have the real Zionists fight me directly. Okay, and this will actually strengthen national unity. The more direct intervention by Turkey and Israel is on the ground, the more it's clear for anybody that got delusioned. And I'm saying already, the vast majority of Syrians, even the ones that were delusioned before, have now flipped side, have understood. They've seen their the Sunni Muslims are going to their mosques and seeing their own preachers being lynched in front of them inside the mosque because they're not Wahhabi, right? So they're seeing their daughters being harassed as they're going to university, right? So so it's not anymore this all those triggers of sectarianism that the West invested in over 15 years war in
Mhm.
Syria are dissolving. And the more the direct involvement of Turkey and Israel is, the better for national enlightenment and awakening it is.
It's humiliating, even, right? I mean, these guys are saying that they're Syria and Israel is intervening in order to protect the jihadists in power. That looks horrendous. And the same thing with Turkey. I mean, these are foreign imperialists that are effectively intervening in order to keep their proxy in charge of the country. That's astonishing. Wow. Laith, thank you for this. Thank you for the breakdown. I deeply appreciate it. And I know the audience appreciates it also. We have a really good crowd today. So thank you for this. Laith Marouf, he's an award-winning multimedia producer and broadcasting law consultant. Laith, where can people find you? I want to let people to know.
Yeah, you can follow us on our website, freepalestine.video, and from there you can get all our socials. We're on Twitter at TV Free Palestine. We're on Instagram, on Telegram, on YouTube, and others. And people can donate and follow all our content. As now, before the collapse of the Damascus government, we're already building capabilities to produce content from there. And then
Mhm.
obviously this happened, so we feared a little bit for the lives of anybody that was going to be involved. But as now more space is breaking in Syria for revolutionary media, we're trying to build right now units again to be able to cover the stories from Syria. So people donating on freepalestine.video can help us with this. Thank you very
Oh,
much for having me tomorrow.
please, that would be fantastic. Be safe, or at the very least try to be, but no, we require good reporting out of Syria. Thank you for this, Laith. Be safe, man. Have a
See you
good one.
soon. Bye bye.
All right. Shout out to